Welcome in to One of One Sports, the only one for your original sports commentary and analysis. Today, we are going to be previewing and predicting the college football national championship game. We've got Indiana versus Miami. There's a lot to talk about, so let's get into it. All right, before we break down the game, if you guys are enjoying the content on the channel, we're going to have a lot more college football content at the end of the year. We'll do way too early top 25s, that kind of thing, previewing next year. And then, of course, we're going to have other sports content on the channel, so consider leaving a like and subscribing. With that being out of the way now, let's jump into the prediction. Now, I didn't do a video this breaking down or reacting to the Miami Ole Miss game and the Indiana Oregon game. So we're going to cover that a bit quickly while we talk about these teams. And the first one I want to talk about is Indiana Oregon because it was such a major statement. And I do think it encapsulates everything that Indiana can do if you don't play a perfect game. And Oregon was obviously far from perfect and kind of beat themselves. Not exactly beat themselves, because even if they didn't make some of these major mistakes, we know Indiana could still easily win this game. They are that good. They've played that well all season. But when you open the game with the pick six, and then shortly after that, your running back and quarterback are too close together, knock the ball, and then you get a strip sack, and you have these 3 turnovers, you're not going to beat Indiana that way. You can't beat them that way because they execute too well. They aren't going to beat themselves. Oregon making those mistakes, the game's over before you even get a chance. And I think that's important because one of the weaknesses I would say Miami had in the Ole Miss game, despite being or looking like the more talented team, playing better in large stretches, especially in the first half, it was still close. It was still down to the wire till the very end, where Ole Miss had to throw to the end zone to try to win the game, was because Miami had these self-inflicted wounds. And it wasn't necessarily with turnovers, but it was with penalties. And if you're going to be either heavily penalized or commit turnovers against Indiana, you're just not going to win that game. So for Miami, who is clearly the underdog, about a touchdown underdog at home. They are playing in Hard Rock Stadium. They're about a touchdown underdog at home. You have to play a very clean brand of football. That means you have to clean up these penalties. You can't have turnovers. Carson Beck needs to play really clean football, which, to his credit, he has been playing. And in these early playoff games, like against A&M and against Ohio State, he was willing to be, or was, the game manager role, not going to lose you the game, let the defense win. And then when the defense struggled against Ole Miss, he had to put up points. Then he stepped in and did that as well and had the game-winning drive, maybe the best drive he's had all season, certainly the most important, and looked like a guy that was worthy of being paid $4 or $5 million, whatever it was, to bring him in. So to his credit, he's been very good in these playoffs, but he's going to need to have probably his best game. And for that matter, Miami's going to need to have their best game because this is the biggest test they will have faced all season. Now, moving on from Carson Beck, I want to talk about the quarterback on the other side of the ball, Fernando Mendoza, because how can you not talk about him? He has been just incredible in the college football playoffs. Obviously was incredible during the regular season, won the Heisman Trophy, but he's taken his game to another level come playoff time. He's been ridiculously efficient in both playoff games against Oregon, and then in the other one, which was against Alabama. He threw more touchdowns than incompletions in both of those games. So right now, you're more likely to see Mendoza throw a touchdown than interception when you turn on an Indiana game in the college football playoff. It goes without saying that can't be the case if Miami's going to win this game. And the recipe to do that is to, you would think, get pressure to him. And you have probably the best set of guys to do that. Like Ruben Bain, we know what he can do. Akeem Mesidor, we know what kind of player he is. Ahmad Moten should be clear to go. Hopefully he's good on the interior. And then in the secondary, you've had guys who have made really good plays. Jacoby Thomas and Keontae Scott have been really good. But you do have some, I wouldn't say depth issues, but it's more just the injury stuff and then the penalizing stuff of like Xavier Lucas isn't going to be available in the first half because of the targeting. So the secondary isn't as strong as it necessarily should be. OJ Frederique, I think I said his name right, should be playing, but he obviously isn't 100%. And if your secondary is not 100% and this Indiana O-line holds up, which is certainly a possibility, finish third in the Joe Moore Award, then you're going to have to cover speedster like Charlie Becker, who's been amazing in the playoff. Elijah Surratt on that back shoulder throw, which looks unguardable. And that's without even mentioning Omar Cooper, who's maybe the best out of all of them and has the catch of the year in college football going back to that Penn State game. So if you don't get pressure to Mendoza, there's a reason he's been so efficient. There's a reason he's not throwing incomplete passes. It's because he's very precise. He has the arm. He's willing to make the right decisions and not make bad decisions. If he's not there, he's tuck it down. He's running, and people are underestimating his athleticism. So now he's beating him on on the ground. And then you add to that, yes, his receivers are very talented, are going to help him by making very good catches. Becker's playing the best ball he's played all year. They have all the threats. They look complete as a team and look the part of a national champion. So it's all the pressure on Miami to disrupt that. Ruben Bain, who's going to be a first-round pick, has to have a huge game. Think back to that Texas A&M game where he had, what was it, 3 sacks in the game and a blocked field goal, like all that, where he played his best game and he kind of rose up. And now he's already thought of as a great player, but that really put him like, whoa, he played his best game of the year at the right time for Miami. You need that again. Akeem Mesidor, he was banged up in the what am I thinking of? The Ole Miss game. Sorry, he was banged up in the Ole Miss game with the arm thing or shoulder. I can't remember which part it was exactly, but he's been cleared to go. He needs to have a really good game. You have to win on the edge because if you don't, and Mendoza has time, then I just don't think it's really a question. You're not going to hold up against a guy who's been the best player in college football, who won the Heisman Trophy, who's playing the best football he has all year. So it's absolutely on Miami as a defensive line unit and from that coaching staff to come up with ways to disrupt an Indiana offense that's playing at the best we've seen in college football, led by a great quarterback, a great offensive line, and great receivers. It's obviously much easier said than done, but we have to talk about this from the vantage point of this being a difficult task for Miami because they are big underdogs at home. Like I said, it's about touchdown spread in Miami, which means it's probably about 9-point difference, maybe 10-point difference that odds makers are looking at, which is a huge gap in a national championship game and is really incredible considering the fact that odds makers bake in a lot of talent stuff like recruiting rankings and that type of thing will be heavily weighted in most predictive models. And Indiana doesn't have that, and to still be so heavily favored over a team like Miami, which does have that, goes to show how impressive what Kirk Cignetti and company have done really is. Finally, flipping to the other side of the line of scrimmage, we have to talk about Miami's offensive line because they are immensely talented, led by who I think is the best offensive lineman in all of college football, and Francis Mauigoa. Probably going to go top 5 in the NFL draft. I wouldn't mind if he goes number 3 to my favorite team, the Arizona Cardinals. I think he's going to be a really good player for a really long time. But this Miami offensive line needs to win against an Indiana defensive line that, yes, it's undersized at places. They don't have, the typical build of star defensive linemen, but the scheme they use is really effective. And these guys, yes, they're undersized. Yes, they were under-recruited. They're playing better than anyone else in the country. No one's been able to really run the ball on them. Oregon, who's supposed to have this elite offensive line, finished second in the Joe Moore Award. No, they weren't winning up front. They got pressure at Dante Moore when they had that drop back. And it wasn't, I wouldn't say they stifled Oregon's run game, but they were pretty effective. And the first time around, they were pretty effective again. And of course, it's not just the run defense, which is the best in the nation. Texas Tech might be number 1, but it's amongst the best in the nation in run defense. But another part of that is the sacks, because of course in college football, sack yardage goes into your rush yardage. So they can pressure you off the edge where they have really good players, and they have great linebackers, and they have great secondary. Like, there's star players at every level of this defense. And if you're looking at the secondary, they have ball hawks back there. We just saw D'Angelo Pons, one of the best cover corners in college football, open the last round with a pick 6. That's before you get to the secondary, where Louis Moore and Amari Farrell have over 10 picks combined on the season. Then the second level, you see how good of a linebacker Aiden Fisher is. And then on the D-line, Tyree Tucker on the inside, and Kamara is there. Like, there are really good players at every level of this defense. It's why no one has been able to do much of anything. We're talking about Oregon scoring 22. That's one of the better games a team has had against Indiana in terms of points scored. And a lot of that was just garbage time stuff after they'd already been crushed. Alabama, 3 points. Ohio State, 10 points. Like, you can't put up a lot on this team. And we've seen Miami at times this year have these really low-scoring affairs. They beat Texas A&M 10-3. They beat Ohio State, I think it was 24-14, in a similar fashion that Indiana beat them. So Miami's not going to be uncomfortable playing a low-scoring game, but it does mean their offense might struggle because Mark Fletcher has become such an integral part of what they do. He's played really well in these playoffs. If Indiana's stopping the run and you put it on Carson Beck's shoulders, that's where I think you could have the recipe for a disaster, because as good as Carson Beck has played in these playoffs, extremely clutch in the Ole Miss game, and has done what he needed to do in the first couple of rounds, we still know what can happen when Carson Beck tries to do too much, I should say. And yes, I say this pretty much if you've been watching me for a while, you probably have heard me talk about this before, but it goes back to when he was at Georgia. It carries over to this year. When he played in some of these big games, when he versed Alabama, when he versed Texas, 3 interceptions. When he versed rival Florida, 3 interceptions. This year at Miami, when they lost to Louisville, 4 interceptions. So when it goes south for Carson Beck, it goes really far south. When he throws interceptions, he throws them in bunches, and he can lose you a football game. I say it every week. It's why sometimes, as someone who's roots for Miami quite often, I like them, you are sometimes nervous watching Carson Beck because you know if he makes one mistake, and if you do see him make that first mistake, now you're on edge for the rest of the game. You don't necessarily trust him to bounce back from that. You always feel like another one is coming. And when you're versing ball hawk DVs like Pons and Farrell and more, going up against a defensive line that has pretty much dominated everyone they played, and if you can't run the ball, you're going to be asked to do a lot. You can easily see the mistakes happen. They happen to guys like Dante Moore, who's potentially going top 10 in the NFL draft, who I thought was one of the best quarterbacks in the country. And we saw how rattled he looked, not only this week, but last time he played Indiana as well. So it can happen to the best of them when you're going up against a team this good. But he has to be the guy for Miami. You paid him all this money to be here. I think he has to play really well because, yes, I don't think you, like, while you were able to beat Texas A&M by leaning on Mark Fletcher, and you were able to beat Ohio State because of a pick six and then dominate the lines of scrimmage, I don't think you're going to do that to Indiana because that's how they've been beating people. They've dominated Oregon on the offensive line. They've dominated Ohio State on the offensive or on the lines of scrimmage. So as good as Miami has been, led by Maui Goa and Bain and Mesdor and all these great guys, you're not going to dominate Indiana like that. You can maybe play even. You can play just as good, but you're not going to dominate like that. So it's going to be on the shoulders of a quarterback like Carson Beck to go toe-to-toe with a guy like Fernando Mendoza, who's playing better than anyone in the country. It is such a Herculean task, in my opinion, to beat this Indiana school, which is crazy to say. It's just this 2-year turnaround. They've become so far and away the best team in college football this year, and I absolutely am going to pick them in a win this game. And I don't necessarily want to do that. I root for Miami. I've said it on the channel many times. They're one of my favorite teams. But I don't see how a Mario Cristobal team against a Kirk Cincinnati team, major coaching edge Indiana, execution edge is going to be Indiana. All the little things that I dislike about watching Miami, whether they're penalized or they make these little mistakes in game management, that kind of thing, where I've been heavily critical on a Mario Cristobal coach teams, that can't be more apparent than in a game against a Kirk Cincinnati team, which seems to execute almost flawlessly week in and week out. And then you add to that the quarterback edge. Like Beck, yes, he's been playing really well. He's not playing the way Fernando Mendoza is playing. He hasn't played like the way he's played all year. I mean, Mendoza's been the best quarterback for a reason. And then the O-line edge, like maybe it's Miami, maybe it's Indiana. You could go either way on that, but I don't think either team's going to dominate the line of scrimmage. So when it comes down to an even line of scrimmage game, then I have to go, okay, who has the better weapons? Whose quarterback do I trust more? Who do I think is going to execute better? And all those boxes are going to Indiana. Like, I trust Cignetti to have the better game plan. I trust Mendoza to be better, whether it be in the clutch or throughout the course of the game. And I even like their special teams better. All the little things and things that can turn a game, turnover battle. We're talking like Indiana's been number one in turnover margin, and they are number one in turnover margin for a reason. Like, there's not a lot that goes wrong when they play these games typically. So maybe there's an aberration, but you can't count on that. And for that reason, I am picking the Indiana Hoosiers to win with a final score, I will say, of 31-17. Indiana will be national champions in what will be one of the most impressive championships we've ever seen. First 16-0 season in college football history, or at least modern college football history. Kirk Cincinnati will have the most impressive turnaround in the history of college football, and it will be incredible. That being said, make sure to comment down below. Do you agree with me? Do you think Indiana wins, or do you think Miami wins? Until then, can't wait to see the game. We'll have more college football coverage coming. Like I said, way too early. Top 25 is going to be out in the next few days, probably on the weekend before the game comes out. And until then, I'll see you guys next time.